Another day, another creep is found in the punk rock scene. Today's creep is son of the very, very famous Billy Joe Armstrong, the frontman of Green Day, okay? His son, Joey Armstrong, has been getting up to some shenanigans, and I am so surprised I have not talked about this situation on the channel yet so far. This all came to light in 2020, so I'm 3 years behind right now, so I hope you will forgive me on that. But it's time that this subject is talked about publicly on this platform. It's not a silly situation. It's not a goofy situation. It's a very serious situation. And this one is kind of on the same level of darkness as that anti-flag one that we just went through. So let's get going. Hey everybody, my name is Dan Frampton. I hope you're doing well. I hope this video isn't triggering for you, but it's going to deal with some pretty dark subject matter. So if you want to bounce on out of here because this stuff isn't your kind of stuff, I totally get that. That's totally cool. But if you're gonna stay, you might as well pop a like on the video, subscribe, maybe become a member of the channel like these people on this graphic. They've become part of the secret society. They went down there, they hit that join button, and they're getting exclusive content, emojis, badges, and more. Well, not really more, that's about it. Okay, now on to the video. NME, they're a very good publication, and they did a great job reporting on this story. So we're gonna go through it, and we're gonna see what the hell happened in 2020. Now, if you're taking a look at this band photo, could you guess which one is Billy Joe's son? I bet it's not blatantly apparent, but it's the one that looks exactly like him. Okay, perfect. I'm glad we got that out of the way. But in a statement shared on Instagram in 2020, Lydia Knight, singer of the band The Regrets, detailed her experiences with Armstrong, son of Green Day frontman Billy Joe Armstrong, during a one-year relationship that began in mid-2017. Now we're going to get into the specifics of that relationship, which were pretty creepy right off rip, alright? And before we read her statement over here on Instagram, I gotta say that Joey Armstrong was the drummer for the band SWMRS, okay? So he's out there in a punk rock band himself, and even though he's the spitting image of his father, he himself is not the singer. He's out there cooling it up, alright? So let's just get into what Lydia Knight had to say about this whole situation. She goes, "Over the past few weeks, I read a lot of heartbreaking, disturbing, and inspiring stories of abuse in the music industry that were brought to light by some very brave women. Yesterday, my abuser Joey Armstrong and his band SWMRS released an unbelievably hypocritical statement on social media that has pushed me to publicly share my story. This band's delusional positioning of themselves as a woke feminist is not only triggering for me as a victim, but is complete bullshit and needs to be called out. I've spent over a year processing and reflecting on my experience to try to find out the right way to go about it. I was in a relationship with Joey that started when I was 16 and ended before my 18th birthday. For so long, I viewed it as just being toxic and not something valid enough to share. But now I know that what I actually experienced was emotional and sexual coercion by someone in a position of power over me. It is important to me that Joey and his entire band be held accountable to fully understand that even though they view themselves as good guys, they are continuing to perpetuate the exact toxic culture they are trying to call out." Now, does this sound exactly like the anti-flag thing so far? Yeah, except for like the whole pedophilia thing that's going on here. The anti-flag thing didn't really have that aspect to it, and this is just disgusting because, like, you say she was 16, it ended before she even turned 18, before she even became legal, and this guy was apparently 22 years old, which we're about to find out in this statement, but I had to jump the gun there just to highlight that. In May 2017, Joey followed me on Instagram and DM'd me saying SWMRS would be sending us some offers for a few tours later that year. I told him I was a big fan and I was excited. I noticed I was the only member of the band he followed, but I didn't think much of it. I was very publicly 16 at the time, and he was 22. I was especially excited about the tour because I viewed SWMRS as being vocal feminists and having a message that I thought aligned with mine. Oh my god, does this sound exactly like the anti-flag stuff so far? This is insane. These guys are out here being the most evil. They're luring these people in and saying, hey, no, it's safe over here. I'm a safe person. This is a good space for you to be, okay? You can just be yourself here. And then when they let their guard down, they have like this false sense of security, and then you pounce? That's insane. That is absolutely predatory, evil behavior. And when you're born to a millionaire like Billy Joe Armstrong, you have this like silver spoon in your mouth your whole life. You think you can get away with stuff, and this is just ridiculous. On our first tour together in Europe, Joey held my hand under a pillow. Secret hand holding became a thing, and it was exciting. Here was the older guy in a band I loved showing me his attention. One night, he invited me into his bunk. I snuck over, and he was waiting shirtless in his underwear. We kissed for the first time, and then he told me to leave so we weren't caught by my dad, who was sleeping in the bunk between ours. Holy smokes, dude. This is brutal. What am I reading? What are you doing, Joey Armstrong? The next time I snuck over, he dry humped me abruptly. Until he finished. He moved much faster sexually than I was used to, but I didn't question it because he was older and I liked him. Everyone in his band, crew, family, and manager knew we were seeing each other. Because of our age difference, Joey would continually ask me to keep our relationship as hidden as possible, and I did. I'm extremely close with both of my parents, and I was pressured to lie to them and didn't even tell my best friend or therapist what was going on. This created an isolating mindset where I constantly felt alone. We had multiple conversations where he would say something along the lines of, I want to move at your pace, and I don't want to have sex until you're 18, but then would act in a completely contradicting way, pressuring me into sexual situations. The irony in this is that Joey was well aware that I was not a virgin, and these rules he created would consistently remind me of his position of power. He was essentially my boss, and it had nothing to do with my feelings or what I was ready for. Every time we took a step, it was because he wanted to, and made it clear by either putting my hand in his crotch, shaming me for saying I wasn't comfortable, gaslighting me, or ignoring me when I didn't give consent. Our relationship went on for about a year, due to Joey constantly saying things like, we just gotta get through this year, and telling me his fantasies of our lives together in 20 years. I stuck around under the impression that things would change once I turned 18. Every time we saw each other, he made sure to put us in a situation where he could get sexual satisfaction. When we were on a public bench in the freezing cold on a sidewalk or other places with people around, he would pressure me to get him off. When my dad and I flew to Mexico to meet up with Joey to see a show, Joey wanted me to stay with him and shamed me when I told him my dad wasn't okay with it. This made me feel embarrassed because of my age, which led me to lying to my dad by promising I would have my own room. That convinced him to let me stay one night at their hotel. When I got there, I found out we'd be sharing a room with his friend. This didn't stop Joey from pressuring me into giving him a hand job in the shared bedroom. This behavior progressed him into pressuring me into giving him oral sex once he changed his original definition of what was okay. So I just gotta pause it here and remind you that this is a child we're talking about. All this stuff, all these like rules that he then opens up the parameters to, these are parameters for activity with a child, okay? With a kid. This guy is 22 years old, okay? And on tour, abusing his power, abusing people along the way. It's absolutely disgusting. He would ask if I was around to FaceTime when he was about to shower and wanted to see if I would shower too. If I said no, but I'd still love to talk, he would say he was busy, but to let him know if I decided to shower. The times I did agree to shower on FaceTime, he would pressure me into showing my body, which I always didn't want to do. But when I gave in, he would start masturbating without warning. To a child, to a kid, to a literal baby. Okay, well, not a literal baby, but a figurative baby. It's disgusting. There was once a time I decided to have a conversation with him about how the relationship was unfair, unhealthy, and one-sided. He seemed like he understood, but my relief was short-lived. He said he wanted to drive around my neighborhood before dropping me off. Knowing what that would lead to, I made up that I needed to be home soon. That being dismissed, I agreed to kiss for a second in the back seat, but after a minute or two of him pressuring me for more, I told him I needed to go and tried to get out of the car. He laughed as he forcibly pulled me back onto his lap. Now, afraid, I aggressively got out of the car into the front seat and made him take me home. All of this to somebody before they turned 18. Absolutely crazy that this guy was out there just getting away with it. 2 months before my 18th birthday, he flew to New York to spend a few days together. Right before the trip, he told me he was there to rehearse, so I would be seeing him almost only in his bed at night. One of these nights, he changed the rules he had prefaced our entire relationship on. He now said, let's not pay much attention to the exact time frame. This conversation was really eye-opening. His timeline of a promised real relationship was a thing that strung me along, but once we got closer to the thing he would call the finish line, it was apparent it was bullshit all along. I knew I was done and chose to end it. During the 7 months before our previously booked next tour with Swimmers, oh my god, it's so awkward and heinous, I had a lot of time to reflect and unpack. I slowly started to open up to those around me, including my parents, who had no clue what was going on. The more I processed my trauma, the more horrified I became at the thought of touring with them, but wanted to honor our commitment. This tour immediately was different from our past tours with them. We were treated like strangers from a band I had previously considered to be some of my closest friends. I felt like Swimmers and their team were doing anything they could to exert power and punish me. The same power that Joey held over me since our first DM, informing me of our tours, jobs he was offering me. From the beginning, he would constantly make jokes about how we would have to follow his rules on tour because he was the headliner. That professional power dynamic had made its way to all aspects of our relationship. After just finishing up our 6-week tour, I completely blew out my voice during the first show. I spent some time crying in the venue's bathroom before pulling myself together to meet up with the fans in silence so as to not further flare up my nodules. I went to an ENT who gave me a steroid shot to get me through one more show, and his opinion was that the vocal rest was the only way to heal. I got through the show and we left the next day so I could heal physically and emotionally. 5 weeks later, someone shared a video of me singing one song with my boyfriend's band with a certain caption making a joke about my vocal rest being fake. As the cyberbullying began from the Swimmers fans, Max Becker liked the tweet, pushing it to a much greater level. As rumors began to spread about my band, I felt powerless and triggered all over again. Nobody in Swimmers did anything to stop what had happened online. They had known the whole time about Joey and I's inappropriate relationship, and based on yesterday's social media post, still don't understand how they're perpetuating the exact behavior they claim to vocally be against. To quote their ridiculous statement, "It is antithetical to our core values as musicians to use our power for anything other than music." Joey and his band's lack of self-awareness continue to remain seemingly inescapable. To this day, I keep trying to find the right way to heal and get some real closure. It took me 6 years to finally understand I was a victim of abuse. When I started becoming in my current relationship, there were multiple times where I felt extremely triggered and would cry in bed, not knowing how to explain it. I'm still remembering traumatic events from Joey and I's relationship 3 years later. It hit me hard and took a major toll on my self-esteem. Last December, I tried to start the healing process by confronting Joey. Even though he interrupted me throughout the conversation, he seemed to somewhat take in what I was telling him and apologized. In the last few weeks, I have had what I thought were 2 constructive conversations with Cole Becker, where I told him all the traumatic details of my relationship with Joey in hopes of coming up with a solution other than his statement. He seemed very empathetic at the time, which made yesterday's Swimmers post all the more shocking and cold hearted. He dropped a handwritten apology letter from Joey by my house almost a week ago, which was nice but didn't address the abuse, my age, his position of power, or anything sexual at all. After yesterday's social media post, Joey texted me to follow up about the letter, which was a completely transparent attempt at feeling out what I was going to do, knowing the pure hypocrisy their statement held. And in the final paragraph here, she goes on to thank all the women that came forward. They all found comfort in each other's stories and to let each other know that they're all valid. So Joey is no longer in the band SWMRS, okay? The rest of the band were kind of like forgotten about for a little bit, but they're back to releasing music, okay? They released a single this year. Well, they released maybe 3 or 4 songs, and I haven't really listened to them yet, but I don't think that they're going to be my thing. I'll let you know, though. But the similarities between this story and the Anti-Flag story are no coincidence, okay? This kind of stuff exists in the deep, dark underbelly of the punk rock world. And it's not even really the deep, dark underbelly anymore. We're starting to have these conversations in the bright public, okay? In the light of day. So I think Lydia's pretty brave for coming out with this statement. It's very long, it's very detailed, it's very open and honest, and shows a lot of vulnerability. But have we forgotten about that this is Billy Joe Armstrong's son? He's gotta be so disappointed, right? This should be like the future of your legacy, to carry on the Armstrong name, you know what I mean? And here it is, sullied, ruined, pissed all over. As if Billy Joe Armstrong didn't do enough of that already. Okay, I'm gonna get out of here right now. Thank you so much for watching. See you later.